Welcome to Becoming Human. So today I want to talk about three big questions in religion and or life. Now, when I heard when these were taught to me for the first time, they really struck a chord. And I believe that if we are helping each other improve our lives, improve our circumstances in life, having a better experience of life, questions like these three that I'm about to share are super important. They're at the heart of everything we're trying to accomplish in life. Or else, if you don't explore these types of questions, then it's going to be really hard to enjoy your life because you'll always, feel unfulfilled. Okay, so these are three big questions of any world religion or person, and this is based off of Huston Smith's big question, big questions. Okay. So, question number one is, what do we really want? What do people really want? And according to the philosophy, it's pleasure, fame, power, and wealth. Pleasure, fame, power, and wealth. Now, for many of us, that's our first reality, right? And that's okay. I do feel like some part of us as a human being has to have those experiences, right? Especially the way we experience life in our culture. You have so much energy, and you may not really know what to do with it all. And the way we experience stuff like fame and power and wealth, they're very seductive. They are. Like, let's be honest about it. But I think you have to get to a point where you exhaust those things before you can start to want to live a life that offers you more than what those things can offer alone, right? Now, there's say nothing wrong with pleasure. I think life should be pleasurable. There's nothing wrong with having wealth in any regard, whether it be health or financially, um, power or fame. There's different types of power. Um, but it's how you see yourself in relation to those things is what makes those things helpful or harmful for you. Okay, so we want to keep that in mind. So the second question, what are the limitations of what people want? This is a good one. What are the limitations of what people want? All right, so what do we want again? Wealth, fame, and power. Well, what's the problem with that? Well, according to the philosophy, that wealth, fame, and power, they don't multiply when they're shared, right? So the drive for success is insatiable. So what does insatiable mean? It means you will never be satisfied or quenched. Okay. So if you think about a behavior that you had in your life that's very addictive, right? Um, First time you did it, it felt good. It was a way out. It was a freedom. And then every other time you did it since then, it was never quite the same as the first time. It left you never feeling fulfilled, which kept you chasing. Okay, so when I would listen to motivational speakers and try and get amped up and change my direction in life, like there's a lot of wisdom in a lot of motivational speakers, and uh, you know, and a lot of things were very helpful for me, to be honest. But one of the things that always left me unsettled was there was this desire to never be satisfied. Some of the motivational speakers that I really liked, uh, they would talk about how they're always looking towards the next dollar. Enough is never enough. It was really this emphasis on never being satisfied, and that was kind of the catalyst behind you being successful. And me having had some life experiences, and I was also embarking on a spiritual path as well. Um, it was very clear that contentment was the key to happiness, right? Not never being satisfied. And so I was met with this internal conflict, right? Where do I go? What's my intention? If I am seeking more but never satisfied with what I obtain, then it almost felt pointless for me. And really, it felt like the only thing that I would really be doing is, in a way, kind of shaming others or misleading others to do the same, knowing that they would never feel satisfied. So I felt like in order for me to begin to seek external things, I needed to first learn how to become content internally. And yeah, I have to say, the first time I met someone who was truly content, first time I met him in person, he's a spiritual leader, and lives a really recluse life, and but also very active, has schools and travels around the world teaching, but spends the bulk of his time, alone, just kind of cultivating his energy, doing self work, working on himself and working with his monks. But the first time I met him, he was an anomaly. My brain and my subconscious wasn't accustomed to being around a person that was free, who had aspirations but wasn't being pulled by their desires. It's kind of a contradiction when you think about it. It's a paradox in a lot of ways for my brain. That was the way it felt. He was present, but he wasn't being pulled. He cared, but he wasn't concerned. And I couldn't wrap my head around this thing. Here we were in the same space, but he was free. And I wanted what he had, freedom. So I inevitably knew that I needed to learn how to find contentment within myself before I went out to try and seek external things, or else I would risk losing myself again in the process. Okay, so let's move on. World success centers meaning in the self, which proves to be too small for perpetual enthusiasm. And that's what we were just talking about, right? When you're continually seeking external things without learning how to feel fulfilled within yourself, then you get caught in that loop. You get caught in that loop of suffering, right? Of feeling unfulfilled. And you psych yourself into thinking that the next thing will be the thing, right? But it's actually the opposite. It's learning how to attend to your internal health. If we really want to be simple about it, learning how to really, really tune into your internal health, not just physically, but emotionally, right? Energetically, to understand what's driving your behavior. Okay. So, worldly success is ephemeral. You can't take it with you when you die, right? And we all know that one. But that also feeds that desire to try and collect as much as we can, right? Because we fear we're going to lose out if we don't. All right, but when you practice contentment within yourself and you understand that, everything is fleeting, nothing is permanent, but that makes everything a little bit more beautiful. I can remember being in places that I knew I would probably never see again. And I remember just being so grateful that I had the wisdom. And a lot of people share this with me too in their experience as well. But just being so grateful that I had the wisdom to just kind of take a deep breath and just really soak in being in that space and how precious it was, and just let the gratitude really leave an imprint on my life. And it's important to do that. And if you could practice doing that every single day, you'll find that you'll start to become grateful for just literally just being here, right? You'll find you'll find ways to be grateful. You'll realize you're grateful for every little thing, right? You realize you're grateful for your phone. It's not an addiction, but it's like, man, when I'm away, I get to talk to my wife. When I'm away, I get to talk to my son. Like, this is a gift, something to be grateful for, something to handle with care, something to be respectful of, something to be mindful with. So you use it responsibly and respectfully, and not let it turn into an addiction or something that's used for harm. Okay? So just learning how to be grateful and see the things in our lives as a gift and use them in that way. So we do good with these things in the world. But the second question, right? This is a big one because it's a turning point. And that question was, what are the limitations of what people want? So this question is when people start to make a shift, right? They realize that the path they were on, the things they were doing just aren't working anymore. All right. And so next question, what do we really want? What do we really want? Well, first, we want being. What does that mean? To have meaning and purpose. That's what it means to be, just being. And another conversation I was having with my buddy Jerome, we talked a little bit about just being, and he spoke about how powerful it is for a human to see another human just being. It's liberating, right? So that's one of the true desires of this experience. This is one of the big questions that we should ask ourselves, and this is one of the true desires of this being, of this existence, is to just be, learn how to be. Second thing we want is knowledge. Well, what is knowledge? Because you can know a lot about a lot of things, right? And at a certain point, it could become overwhelming. But I think the knowledge that people really want is just truth. What to do, right? What do I do so that you're not over consuming, and you're not being over inundated with so much information disguised as truth, right? And it's challenging because our nervous systems, our senses, they just naturally want to tune in to whatever's happening in the environment. So here's where your intention come into play. This is where it's really important to learn how to focus, to learn how to practice having discipline. Make it a daily practice to build a routine and to build a habit that instills some new behavior patterns that you, and so you can have the experience in life that you want to have, essentially. Because I feel part of the stress that everyone goes through is that their experience of life is different than the life that they see for themselves. And so there's a lot of tension and there's a lot of anxiety built into that psychological trap. So learning how to have some intentions and discipline is super, super important. And ultimately, that gets you closer to truth, right? Because if there's a circle, right, and truth is in the center, the only way to truly know truth from all perspectives, and this was something that I came up with in my understanding and my seeking for truth, the only way to truly know truth from all angles is to immerse yourself in the center. From the outside, you can get close to it, but there'll be a lot of blind spots because you're too close. You can back up. And even if you back up far away and have a great perspective of what truth is, you'll still only see so much of it, half of it at most. So you have to immerse yourself in the process in order to truly experience what truth is. And so as I created routines in my life that instilled the habits that embodied the habits that I wanted to instill, it became more and more evident what was necessary in my life and what wasn't. Who was propelling me forward and who was holding me back. The beautiful thing about that is I learned how to see the people who were holding me back as instruments to further deepen my discipline, further strengthen my discipline. Now I understood that there are boundaries that I needed to draw, and I can still be compassionate towards those people who were pulling me back because they're ultimately stuck in that same cycle that I was in, but just in a different space. And I don't ultimately improve all circumstances around me if I can't, if I perpetuate these systems of harm with people around me just because they don't get it yet, or they're trapped, or they can't see it, or whatever the case may be. So when you immerse yourself in your discipline, then all of a sudden you start to see truth and in its totality, and more of it will start revealing itself to you. And the important thing to recognize is wisdom like this. It's designed to incite your curiosity, to get you to go inward, because the way we experience this truth from one person to another is going to be slightly different, because I'm having my experience and you're having your experience. But if you're examining yourself in a healthy way and you're putting forth practices and building habits to create the experience in life that you want, to intentionally create the experience in life that you want, when we cross paths, it'll be something that's beneficial for both of us. All right. And so the third is the third aspect of what do people really want is we want joy. All right. We want joy. So what does joy look like? Personal fulfillment. Yeah. Personal fulfillment. That's what joy looks like. And how do you have personal fulfillment? What does that look like? Contentment, right? When you're putting forth the effort every day and you're building a discipline and you're starting to see things for what they are, now all of a sudden you start to appreciate where you're at. And even though you still might be striving to get to a certain destination, the space that you're in right now is really sweet, and you're working hard to move forward, but you're not trying to rush through the moment that you're in right now. And it's this really, really, really beautiful dance that I really enjoy. And sometimes you may find circumstances trying to pull you out of it, but it really is a really beautiful place to be. And I've learned over the years to stop trying to cling to that space, because you can cling to anything, but really just begin to understand that, okay, when I stick to my routines, although that space comes and go, over time I find myself having more time in that space where I'm feeling content. And so again, when you're building those habits, now all of a sudden you're able to see what fulfills you in life, and you're able to appreciate where you are while simultaneously striving for where it is you want to be, and that makes life so much sweeter. And so finally, to have these things, finally, what we really want is to have these things with no limitations, right? We want to have these experiences in life with no limitations. And we just talked about a lot of the tools that we can use to do this. And we also talked about the transition and perspective that you go through to kind of get to that space. And even then, it's not an end destination. The practice continues. And that's why discipline is so important. Without discipline, I'm not sure that that you may stumble into fulfillment, but you'll be at the mercy of whatever environment, whatever circumstance you're in, right? And that's why some of us, when we're in a good environment, it's like, you feel great. And then you step into a different environment, and all of a sudden, all that joy you had, you know, is non-existent, and you don't know how to get it back. Well, we just talked about some ways to do that, some ways to learn how to cultivate that within yourself and build that within yourself, so that you can have peace and joy, wherever you go. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope it reaches whoever it needs to reach. Lastly, I'll share a personal story um, on my journey with this. And mind you, you'll go through multiple journeys like this. Whenever you pass one threshold, it's like a new lesson comes. But with the next lesson, you're more equipped, and you really appreciate where you are, and that you have the ability to now grow from this without the degree of setbacks that you may have had in the past. But so the personal story is, I once worked a sales job, and I had the mindset that success was domination. And I walked into the sales job on day one, and I really enjoyed what I was selling. So that was a plus, and I really enjoyed the environment. That was a plus. But my intentions were off. My intentions weren't in alignment with who I was and how I saw myself. My intentions were in alignment with how I deemed success through society's eyes, which was through domination. Okay, and so I'm in a sales job. I'm working hard. Over the years, I found myself, you know, I ended up becoming one of the top salespeople in the company. And, this is a really cool accomplishment. It was a pretty big company, thousands of employees. And when I left the company, I was in the top 40, so that was a really cool accomplishment. And a lot of people in the company want to be there. You are, um, you know, making more money than most of the other salespeople. You're getting some perks. It's you know, by a lot of people's standards, checks a lot of boxes. It's successful, especially within that realm of profession. You had a lot of success, and yet I felt unfulfilled. I started to realize that the environment put salespeople against one another, and I was kind of taken away um, from the people who I work with. And in order for them to be successful, they kind of had to do the same things to me. And it was just a matter of time before I ran into someone who was better at doing it than me, like I was with some other folks. And I quickly realized that that wasn't the way I wanted to live my life, and that's not the way to live life. Um, there's a way for all of us to really blossom and find our own genius, and to be wealthy and rich in our own way. And me suppressing other people isn't the way to do that. So there's just a little personal story from my experience. And again, you'll have lots of them. And just being able to realize where you are in the moment and grow from them is such a gift, and it's so important. And that's what discipline gets you. And that's where having great intentions get you. And that's where um, having reminders and building an environment around you and in you that reinforces those great intentions. That's where those things help you. So again, I hope this was helpful, and I hope it reaches whoever it needs to reach. And I hope you have a wonderful day, and don't underestimate your ability to transform, right? Don't underestimate the ability to transform, and that asking yourself little questions like these can make huge transformations just by taking little steps every day. So may you have a wonderful day.